All right, gang, I have another editorial for you on this Hump Day Wednesday. This one's coming out of Kentucky. Now, remember, I gave you an editorial just recently out of Oklahoma where they want to make it a crime to post information about police officers or law enforcement officers on social media. Name, place of work, all that. Like, you can't even say Joe Smith from this police department. So remember when I said it's going to start catching across the U.S.? It already is catching. It's like wildfire. Kentucky now is getting in on the business by their little bill. So we're going to look at this. So Oklahoma, now Kentucky. Who's going to follow? Let's look at it. Thank you, Fox News, for this story. A bill advancing out of a Kentucky Senate committee on Thursday would make it a crime to insult or taunt a police officer to the point where the taunts provoke a violent response.
What the hell is
Colonel
this?
Jessup, you have the right to remain silent. Any statement
I'm
you
being
make
charged with a
used against
crime.
you in a trial by court-martial
Is that what
or
this
other
is?
judicial or administrative
I'm being
proceeding.
charged with a
You have
crime?
the right to consult with a lawyer prior to any further
This is
questioning.
funny.
This lawyer may be a civilian
That's what
lawyer
this
appointed
is.
by
Senate Bill 211 passed by a 7-3 vote, according to reports. The proposal was a response to riots throughout the country last summer, said the bill's sponsor, Senator Danny Carroll, Republican from Benton, a retired police officer. Senator Carroll said, according to the Louisville Courier-Journal, in these riots you see people getting up in officers' faces, yelling in their ears, doing everything they can to provoke a violent response. Senator Carroll continued, I'm not saying that the officers do that, but there has to be a provision within the statute to allow officers to react to that, because that does nothing but incite those around that vicinity, and it furthers and escalates the riotous behavior. Louisville, Kentucky's largest city, saw numerous instances of unrest last year over the lack of criminal charges against police officers in connection with the death of Breonna Taylor, who was fatally shot March 13, 2020, during a police raid inside of her home. Senator Carroll noted the bill wasn't about limiting lawful protest in any way, shape, form, or fashion. He said this country was built on lawful protest, and it's something that we must maintain, our citizens' right to do so. What this deals with are those who cross the line and commit criminal acts. The bill kept language making a person guilty of disorderly conduct a Class B misdemeanor if they accost, insult, taunt, or challenge a law enforcement officer with offensive or derisive words, or by gestures or other physical contact that would have a direct tendency to provoke a violent response from the perspective of a reasonable and prudent person. State Senator David Yates, a Louisville Democrat, criticized the bill's language, saying police officers he knows are too professional to retaliate violently simply because of words, according to the paper. Yates said, I don't believe that any of my good officers are going to be provoked to a violent response because somebody does a yo mama joke or whatnot. Meanwhile, Corey Shapiro, an attorney with the ACLU of Kentucky, said, the idea that the legislature would be criminalizing speech in such a way is offensive. Verbally challenging police action, even if by insulting or offensive language, is a cornerstone of our democracy, Shapiro told the Courier-Journal. And the First Amendment protects people's ability to express themselves, even if it's using offensive words to the police. The bill will now go to the full Senate and could be passed as early as next week, though not much time will remain in the 30-day session to also make it through the House, according to the paper. Now, this one, man, this was kind of written confusingly, but I tried to give it to you as clear as mud. Basically, this bill says if you taunt, or what was the wording here? Taunt, accost, insult, challenge a law enforcement officer, and it provokes a violent response from a reasonable, prudent person, you could be charged with a crime. Some questions here. Number one, isn't insulting part of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution? Not that I like to insult people, but right? Taunting, isn't that part of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution? And they say that would evoke a violent response. A cop could just turn around because you flip them off and say, you stupid, bald-headed looking, 8-ball-headed, cue ball looking dummy, and they could swing their baton. Now you're charged with a crime because you provoked a violent response. Cop's just doing his job. So who gets to determine what evoked that violent response? The court systems do. You know, who gets to determine what's a reasonable response from perspective? The court systems do. See, we lose on this one. There is no way Americans can win by this bill. No way. This is a government/law enforcement bill, or I should say government-law enforcement bill, that is going to try to take away cop watching. And they say, well, we're still for peaceful protesting. Yeah, that's why cops get in a line. And when people are protesting, even peacefully, but they're yelling and shouting, well, this is a unlawful assembly because they're shouting and yelling. And they start moving you back, and you either get back or you get hit with a baton or arrested. Bottom line is, the government and the law enforcement world are trying to take away the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. They're trying to erase that. They're trying to get us away from recording the police because of what happened in 2020. They don't want to end up on somebody's YouTube video. And furthermore, when it said right here where it says accost, insult, taunt, or challenge a law enforcement officer with offensive or derisive words, or by gestures. Well, read between the lines, has already been ruled upon by the Supreme Court, Johnson versus Johnsonville. It's okay to flip a cop off. But that's a rude gesture that could provoke a violent response. So basically, they're taking what the Supreme Court ruled on and saying, no good. We're changing the rules. And Americans, you lose. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Community Leo Watch. Watching Leos, that's law enforcement officers, to include those that get offended by gestures and taunting, and from coast to coast.